My name is Cedric Fallon, and I've spent the last 15 years adjusting insurance claims for people who think they're smarter than the system. You'd be surprised how many creative ways folks find to explain why their brand new television somehow fell off a truck that wasn't moving. The job taught me to notice details others miss, to read between the lines, and to never trust the first story someone tells you. Which is exactly why I knew something was wrong when I found that hotel receipt in Noemi's purse. I wasn't snooping, not exactly. She'd asked me to grab her phone charger from her bag while she was in the shower, getting ready for another one of her famous girls' trips to Wisconsin. These trips had become more frequent lately, always to some spa or resort where she and her friend Tara would supposedly drink wine and complain about their husbands. The routine was always the same: 3 days of packing, 2 hours of explaining how much she needed this break, and 1 week of stories about how refreshing it was to get away from everything. The receipt was tucked between her wallet and makeup bag, folded once, but not hidden. The Grand Luxe Hotel in Lake Geneva. Presidential suite. 2 nights. Romance package included. Champagne service, rose petal turn down, couples massage appointment. I stood there in our bedroom, listening to the shower running, holding a piece of paper that changed everything. The receipt was dated for next weekend, her trip with Tara. "Cedric, did you find it?" Noemi called from the bathroom. "Yeah, got it," I managed, my voice steady despite the way my chest had tightened. I slipped the receipt back where I found it and grabbed the charger. When she emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in her favorite silk robe, I handed it to her with what I hoped was my usual expression of mild interest. "Thanks, honey." She plugged in her phone and started scrolling immediately. "Tara's already at the hotel. She says the spa looks amazing." I nodded, watching her face as she typed. 22 years of marriage, and I'd never paid attention to how she looked when she was lying. Now I couldn't see anything else. The way her eyes stayed focused on the screen a little too intently, the slight upturn at the corner of her mouth that she tried to suppress. "Presidential suite, huh?" I said casually. "That's quite an upgrade from your usual girls' trips." She didn't even flinch. "Tara's been saving up. You know how she gets about these things." Her fingers moved across the screen. "She says we deserve to treat ourselves for once." I made a non-committal sound and headed downstairs to make coffee. In the kitchen, I stood at the counter and tried to process what I'd discovered. The romance package. The couple's massage. Either Tara had developed some very different ideas about friendship, or Noemi wasn't going to Wisconsin with Tara at all. My phone buzzed. Jules Riley, my friend from the office, sending his usual morning complaint about our supervisor. Instead of responding to his message, I called him. "Little early for a crisis, don't you think?" Jules answered. He was the IT guy for our insurance company, which meant he spent most of his day fixing computers and collecting office gossip with equal efficiency. "I need to ask you something," I said, keeping my voice low. "Hypothetically." "Oh, this sounds good already." If someone wanted to verify whether a hotel reservation was actually made by the person who claims they made it, how would they go about that? Jules was quiet for a moment. "Hypothetically, you mean?" "Right. Well, hypothetically, if someone had the reservation number and knew a few basic details, they could call the hotel directly. Most places will confirm basic information if you sound like you belong, especially if you're calling about your own reservation. And if you wanted to make changes to that reservation? Cedric, what exactly are we talking about here?" I looked toward the stairs, making sure Noemi was still in the bedroom. "I think my wife is having an affair." The line went quiet. Jules had met Noemi plenty of times at office parties and company picnics. He'd always been polite, but I'd caught him rolling his eyes more than once when she launched into one of her stories about the important clients at her travel agency or the exclusive restaurants she'd discovered. "You sure?" he asked finally. "I found a hotel receipt, presidential suite with a romance package, for a trip she's supposedly taking with Tara." That's pretty sloppy of her. That's what I thought. Either she's getting careless, or she wants me to find out. What are you going to do? I watched the coffee drip into the pot and considered my options. I could confront her directly, but something told me that wouldn't go the way I wanted. The way she'd responded when I mentioned the presidential suite, so smooth and confident, suggested she had her story ready. I'm going to find out who she's really going with, I said, and then I'm going to make sure they both get exactly what they deserve. Cedric. Nothing illegal, I added quickly. Just a little creative problem solving. Jules laughed, but it sounded nervous. You know what? I don't want to know the details. But if you need technical support for any hypothetical situations, give me a call. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. After I hung up, I poured my coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Upstairs, I could hear Noemi moving around, probably laying out clothes and deciding which outfits would be most appropriate for her romantic weekend with whoever had caught her attention. The smart thing would be to hire a private investigator, gather evidence, and file for divorce. Clean and simple. But as I sat there drinking my coffee and thinking about that receipt, I realized I didn't want clean and simple. I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd thrown away, and I wanted her mystery man to learn that some husbands aren't as passive as they appear. Noemi came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed in the kind of casual outfit that probably cost more than most people's car payments. She kissed my cheek and grabbed a yogurt from the refrigerator. I'll probably leave around 10, she said. Tara wants to get there in time for lunch. Sounds perfect. I smiled at her over my coffee cup. I hope you two have a wonderful time. She smiled back, and for just a moment I saw a flicker of something in her expression. Guilt, maybe, or surprise that I was being so accommodating. You're sweet, she said. I know these trips aren't exactly exciting for you. Don't worry about me. I'll find ways to keep myself busy. After she left, I called the Grand Luxe Hotel in Lake Geneva. The receptionist was cheerful and helpful, especially when I explained that I was calling about my wife's reservation and wanted to make sure everything was perfect for our romantic weekend. Oh yes, Mr. Dewitt, she said. We have you down for the presidential suite, Friday and Saturday night. The romance package is all set up. Mr. Dewitt. So now I had a name. Actually, I said, I was wondering if we could make a small change to the romance package. Of course. What did you have in mind? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. I'd like to make it a surprise. Finding Travis Dewitt turned out to be easier than I'd expected. A quick search on social media revealed exactly the kind of man I'd imagined. 34 years old, owner of a tech startup that specialized in app development, and the proud owner of an orange Lamborghini that appeared in roughly half of his photos. His Instagram was a carefully curated collection of gym selfies, expensive meals, and motivational quotes about success and taking what you want from life. He was also tagged in several photos with Noemi from the past few months. Nothing obviously romantic, just group shots from restaurants and parties. But now that I knew what to look for, the signs were obvious. The way they stood just a little too close, the way his hand rested on her lower back in a group photo from some charity event I'd supposedly been too busy to attend. I called the hotel back and spoke to a different receptionist. I'm calling about the Dewitt reservation for this weekend, I said. I need to make some changes. Let me pull that up for you. Can I get the confirmation number? I read the number from Noemi's receipt. Perfect. What changes did you need to make, Mr. Dewitt? Well, my companion had to cancel at the last minute, I said, putting just the right amount of disappointment in my voice. I'm going to be coming alone. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Would you like to modify the romance package? Actually, I'd like to enhance it. This is a difficult time for me, and I want to treat myself. Could you arrange for some special touches? Maybe some extra attention from the staff? Of course. What did you have in mind? I spent the next 10 minutes creating what I thought would be a memorable experience for Travis. Rose petals arranged in the shape of a heart on the bed with a banner reading, "Welcome, Mr. Dewitt, enjoy your solo retreat. Champagne service with a special toast to new beginnings and self-discovery." And a request that the staff be extra attentive since I would be celebrating my independence and might need emotional support. The receptionist was enthusiastic about accommodating my requests. She even suggested adding a complimentary spa treatment for relaxation during this transition period. "That sounds perfect," I said. "And could you make sure the staff knows this is a surprise I'm planning for myself? I want the full treatment as soon as I arrive." "Absolutely, Mr. DeWitt. We'll make sure your weekend is unforgettable." After I hung up, I felt better than I had in months. But I wasn't finished. I called Jules at work. "How's your hypothetical situation developing?" he asked. "I need another favor. Still hypothetical." "I'm listening." "If someone wanted to make sure a piece of information reached the right people at exactly the right time, what would be the most efficient way to do that?" "Depends on the information and the people." I explained about Travis, about the hotel reservation, and about my modifications to his romantic weekend. Jules was quiet for a long moment. "You're really going through with this." "She thinks I'm too predictable to fight back. I want to show her how wrong she is." "What do you need from me?" "Noemi's friend Tara works at the same travel agency. They talk constantly. If Tara happened to hear that Noemi wasn't actually going on a girls' trip, she might have some interesting questions." "And how would Tara hear about that?" "I was thinking maybe someone could mention seeing Noemi with a man who drives an orange Lamborghini. Someone who works in insurance and knows how to notice details." Jewel laughed. "You know what? I like this plan. Tara comes into our building sometimes for lunch with that woman from accounting. I could probably arrange to bump into her. Nothing too obvious, just plant the seed." "Leave it to me." The next morning, I drove to Travis's office building downtown. His company, DeWitt Digital Solutions, occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower in the business district. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:30, Travis emerged from the building and walked to the parking garage. 5 minutes later, the orange Lamborghini pulled onto the street. Even from a distance, I could see him talking on his phone, probably making plans for his romantic weekend. I followed him to an upscale gym in River North. He parked in front, taking up 2 spaces, and strutted inside wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I waited in my car, watching the entrance. This was where I'd make my first direct move. When Travis came out an hour later, sweating and looking pleased with himself, I was standing next to his car. "Nice ride," I said as he approached. He looked me up and down, taking in my insurance adjuster clothes and 10-year-old sedan. "Thanks. Travis DeWitt, right? I think we have a mutual friend." His expression became guarded. "Yeah? Who's that?" "Noemi Fallon, my wife." I watched his face change as he processed the information. To his credit, he didn't try to deny it or act confused. "Look, man," he started. "Oh, don't worry about it," I said, smiling. "I'm not here to cause trouble. Actually, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me." "For taking her off my hands. Honestly, you're doing me a favor." He stared at me, clearly trying to figure out if this was some kind of trap. "The thing is," I continued, "I know about this weekend. The hotel, the presidential suite, all of it. And I just wanted to make sure you two have the most memorable experience possible." "What do you mean?" "Let's just say I've made some special arrangements. I think you're going to be surprised by how much attention you get." I patted the hood of his car and started walking back to my own vehicle. "Wait," he called after me. "What kind of arrangements?" I turned back and gave him my biggest smile. The kind that will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. I drove away, leaving him standing next to his car with a confused expression on his face. In my rearview mirror, I could see him pulling out his phone, probably calling Noemi. Good. Let them worry about what I might be planning. The anticipation would make the actual surprise even better. That afternoon, Jules called me at work. "Mission accomplished," he said. "I happened to run into Tara at the coffee shop downstairs. We got to talking about weekend plans, and I mentioned seeing someone who looked exactly like Noemi getting into an orange sports car yesterday. Really distinctive car," I said. "Hard to miss." What did she say? She looked confused, said Noemi was supposed to be picking her up for their girls' trip, and she'd never mentioned knowing anyone with a car like that. Perfect. There's more. Tara tried calling Noemi right there in the coffee shop. Noemi didn't answer, but Tara left a message asking about the change in plans and whether she should still pack for Wisconsin. I felt a surge of satisfaction. The web was starting to unravel, exactly as I'd planned. "You know," Jules said, "I'm starting to think your wife might not be as smart as she thinks she is. That's what I'm counting on." When I got home that evening, Noemi was in the kitchen, pacing while she talked on her phone. She looked agitated, which was unusual for her. Noemi prided herself on always being in control of every situation. "I don't know what he's talking about," she was saying. "Maybe he has me confused with someone else." She saw me come in and quickly ended the call. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said, but her smile seemed forced. "Just some confusion about tomorrow's plans." "Oh? What kind of confusion?" "Tara thought she saw me with someone yesterday, but she must have been mistaken." "Mistaken how?" Nomi's eyes narrowed slightly. "She said she saw me getting into some orange sports car, which is ridiculous because I don't know anyone who drives a car like that." I nodded sympathetically. People see what they expect to see sometimes, or maybe what they want to see. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that maybe Tara's more observant than you give her credit for." The look she gave me was sharp and calculating. For a moment, I saw past the mask she usually wore, and I realized that my wife was much more ruthless than I'd ever imagined. "I'm going to finish packing," she said. "Need any help?" "No, I can handle it myself." As she headed upstairs, I called after her. "Have a wonderful time this weekend, honey. I hope you get everything you deserve." She paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked back at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that you've been working so hard lately. You deserve a break." She studied my face for a long moment, then continued upstairs without another word. I made myself dinner and settled in to watch television, feeling more relaxed than I had in months. Tomorrow, Travis Dewitt would arrive at the Grand Luxe Hotel expecting a romantic weekend with my wife. Instead, he'd get a very different kind of surprise. And this was just the beginning. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, which seemed appropriate for what I had planned. Noemi left the house at 9:30, kissing my cheek and reminding me that she'd be back Sunday evening. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. She'd always known how to put herself together in a way that made other women envious and men take notice. "Drive safe," I told her. "And remember, if you need anything at all, just call." She gave me a strange look. "I will." After she left, I waited exactly 1 hour, then drove to Lake Geneva myself. I wasn't going to miss Travis's grand entrance at the hotel. The Grand Luxe was everything its website promised: elegant, expensive, and discreet. The kind of place where wealthy people went to conduct affairs and pretend they were being sophisticated about it. I parked where I could see the main entrance and settled in to wait. Travis arrived at 2:15, pulling up to the valet stand in his orange Lamborghini like he owned the place. He was dressed in what I assumed was his idea of casual elegance: designer jeans, expensive sneakers, and a shirt that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. I followed him into the lobby, staying far enough back to avoid being noticed. The hotel staff recognized him immediately. "Mr. Dewitt," the desk clerk's voice carried across the marble lobby. "Welcome to the Grand Luxe. We have everything prepared for your special weekend." Travis looked confused. "Special weekend?" "Oh, yes, sir. Your solo retreat package. We're so excited to help you celebrate your independence." I watched Travis's face go through several expressions as he tried to process what was happening. Behind him, other guests in the lobby were starting to pay attention to the conversation. "I think there's been some mistake," he said, lowering his voice. "No mistake at all, Mr. Dewitt," the clerk said cheerfully. "You specifically requested our enhanced romance package for one. We have rose petals arranged in a heart shape on your bed, champagne service with a special toast to new beginnings, and a complimentary spa treatment to help you through this difficult transition." The lobby was getting quieter as more people tuned in to what was happening. Travis's face was turning red. "I didn't request any of that," he said. "Oh, but you did, sir. You called personally to modify your reservation. You said your companion had canceled and you wanted to treat yourself during this difficult time." A woman near the concierge desk whispered something to her husband, who looked over at Travis with obvious amusement. "There's been a misunderstanding," Travis said, his voice getting louder. "I'm not here alone." "But sir, you specifically said you were celebrating your independence and might need emotional support from the staff." That's when I decided to make my entrance. "Travis," I called out, walking across the lobby with a big smile. "I'm so glad I caught you." He spun around, his face going pale when he saw me. "Cedric, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to make sure you got my message about the weekend," I said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I hope you don't mind that I took the liberty of upgrading your experience." "Your message?" "About Noemi. She won't be joining you after all. I thought you should know before you embarrassed yourself." The lobby had gone completely quiet now. Even the desk clerk was staring at us. "I don't know what you're talking about," Travis said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Oh, come on. The presidential suite? The romance package? Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" I turned to address the growing audience. "My wife was supposed to meet this gentleman for a romantic weekend, but I'm afraid she's had a change of heart." "You're crazy," Travis said, but he was backing toward the elevator. "Am I? Then why don't you call her? I'm sure she'll explain everything." Travis pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I watched him dial, waited while it rang, saw his expression change when it went to voicemail. "Noemi, it's me," he said. "Call me back right away. There's a problem." I shook my head sympathetically. "I wouldn't hold your breath if I were you. She's probably halfway home by now." "This is insane." "What's insane is thinking you could steal another man's wife without consequences." I looked around the lobby, making sure everyone was still listening. "But hey, you've got the presidential suite all to yourself now. I hear the rose petals are arranged in a lovely heart shape." Travis's phone buzzed. He answered it immediately. "Noemi? Thank God. Listen, your husband is here and He stopped talking, his face going white. "What do you mean, what husband?" "Cedric. Your husband, Cedric." I couldn't hear Noemi's side of the conversation, but I could guess what she was saying from Travis's expression. "You told me you were divorced," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You said the papers were already filed." Now that was interesting. So Noemi had been lying to both of us. Travis listened for another moment, then slowly lowered the phone. "She hung up," he said. "I'm sorry, man. I really am." I patted his shoulder in what I hoped looked like a gesture of sympathy. "But look on the bright side. Now you know exactly what kind of woman she is before you wasted any more time on her." I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at him. "Oh, and Travis, enjoy your solo retreat. I hear the spa treatment is supposed to be very relaxing." I walked out of the hotel, leaving Travis standing in the lobby, surrounded by curious strangers and hotel staff who were still trying to figure out what had just happened. But I wasn't done yet. I drove to a coffee shop down the street and called Jules. "How did it go?" he asked. "Better than I expected. Travis is currently enjoying his romantic weekend alone, and I think Noemi's cover story is starting to fall apart. What's next? Now we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they're dealing with." I spent the next hour in the coffee shop, using their Wi-Fi to create anonymous accounts on several social media platforms. Then I posted a carefully worded message on the Lake Geneva Community Forum. Witnessed the most awkward scene at the Grand Luxe Hotel today. Guy shows up for romantic weekend, finds out his married girlfriend has stood him up. Hotel staff had prepared special solo retreat package complete with rose petals and emotional support. Felt bad for everyone involved, but you have to wonder what people are thinking these days. I included a photo I'd taken of Travis's orange Lamborghini in the hotel parking lot, making sure the license plate was visible. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments and shares. Someone had already identified Travis from his license plate and linked to his social media profiles. Another person had recognized the situation from my description and added their own details about what they'd witnessed in the lobby. By evening, the story was spreading across multiple platforms. Travis Dewitt, successful entrepreneur and social media influencer, had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of dating married women. I drove home feeling satisfied with the day's work. Noemi's car was in the driveway, which meant she'd come back early from her girls' trip. I found her in the kitchen, pacing and talking on her phone again. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call. "You're home early," I said. "How was Wisconsin?" "Fine," she said, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Where's Tara? I thought you two were staying through Sunday." "She wasn't feeling well. We decided to cut the trip short." I nodded understandingly. "That's too bad. I hope she feels better soon." Noemi studied my face, clearly trying to figure out how much I knew. "Cedric," she said finally, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About us. About our marriage." "What about it?" She took a deep breath. "I think we both know things haven't been good between us for a while." "Have they?" I hadn't noticed. "Don't play games with me. I know you know about Travis." I raised my eyebrows in mock surprise. "Travis who?" "Travis Dewitt. I know you went to the hotel today." "Did I? What hotel was that?" Her composure finally cracked. "Stop pretending you don't know what's going on." "I'm not pretending anything, Noemi. I'm just trying to understand why my wife is talking about some man named Travis when she was supposed to be in Wisconsin with her friend." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating her options. "Fine," she said. "You want to play it this way? Let's see how you feel when everyone finds out what kind of husband you really are." "What kind is that?" "The kind who spies on his wife. The kind who sabotages relationships out of jealousy. The kind who humiliates people in public because he can't handle the truth about his own failures." I smiled at her. "Is that the story you're going with?" "It's not a story. It's the truth." "Well then, I guess we'll see which version people find more believable." She stormed out of the kitchen, and I heard her stomping up the stairs. A few minutes later, she was back, carrying a suitcase. "I'm staying at Tara's tonight," she said. "We'll figure out the details later." "What details?" "The divorce, Cedric. The house, the accounts, all of it." She headed for the door, then turned back. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've won something, but you have no idea what you've started." After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my living room, thinking about what she'd said. She was right about one thing. I had started something, but I was far from finished. The next few days passed quietly, but I knew it was the calm before the storm. Noemi was staying at Tara's house, and according to Jules, who had become my unofficial intelligence network, she was spending her time making phone calls and meeting with people. She was planning something, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like it. My suspicions were confirmed on Wednesday morning when my supervisor, Janet Morrison, called me into her office. "Cedric, we need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to my attention," she said, her expression serious. "What kind of concerns?" "About your behavior outside of work. Specifically, some incidents involving harassment and public embarrassment of private individuals." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "I received a call yesterday from someone claiming you've been stalking and harassing her and her friend. She says you followed them to a hotel and created a public scene designed to humiliate them. That's an interesting version of events. So you don't deny being at the Grand Luxe Hotel last Friday? I don't deny being in Lake Geneva, no. It's a public place. Janet leaned back in her chair. Cedric, you've been a good employee for 15 years. Your work is solid, you're reliable, and you've never given me any reason to question your judgment. But if you're going through some kind of personal crisis that's affecting your behavior outside of work, I need to know about it. There's no crisis, Janet. My wife was having an affair, and I exposed it. If she wants to call that harassment, that's her choice. She says you've been spreading false information about her on social media. I haven't posted anything false. Every detail I've shared is completely accurate. Janet studied my face for a long moment. I'm going to give you some advice, and I hope you'll take it seriously. Whatever's going on in your personal life, don't let it spill over into your professional life. We have a reputation to maintain, and we can't have employees involved in public scandals. I understand. Good. And Cedric? If this situation escalates, you need to handle it through proper legal channels. Don't take matters into your own hands. After I left Janet's office, I called Jules. She's making her move, I told him. She called my boss, trying to get me fired. That was predictable. What else have you heard? She's been reaching out to people in your social circle, telling them her side of the story. According to my sources, she's painting herself as the victim of an abusive marriage who finally found the courage to leave. Abusive? Emotional abuse, she's claiming. Says you've been controlling and manipulative for years, and when she tried to start a new relationship, you snapped. I felt a surge of anger, but I pushed it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help me now. What about Travis? He's keeping a low profile. The hotel incident went viral on social media, and it's not doing good things for his business reputation. Apparently, several clients have already canceled contracts. Good. Cedric, you need to be careful. If Noemi's claiming abuse, she might try to get a restraining order. Based on what evidence? She doesn't need much evidence to get a temporary order. Just her word and a sympathetic judge. That afternoon, I decided it was time to take the offensive. I drove to Noemi's travel agency, an upscale firm that specialized in luxury vacations for wealthy clients. The office was in a renovated Victorian house in one of the city's more expensive neighborhoods, the kind of place that charged premium prices for the privilege of dealing with people who considered themselves too sophisticated for regular travel agents. I parked across the street and waited. At 4:30, Noemi emerged from the building with her boss, Soren Kirkpatrick, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s who had built the agency's reputation on discretion and exclusivity. They were deep in conversation, and from their body language, it didn't look like a pleasant discussion. Soren appeared to be doing most of the talking, while Noemi listened with an increasingly defensive posture. After Soren left, Noemi stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, talking on her phone. Even from a distance, I could see she was agitated. I waited until she went back inside, then called the travel agency. Kirkpatrick Travel, this is Melissa. How can I help you? Hi, I'd like to speak with Soren Kirkpatrick, please. This is regarding one of his employees, Noemi Fallon. May I ask what this is concerning? It's a personal matter. I'm her husband. There was a brief pause. Hold on, please. Soren came on the line a moment later. Mr. Fallon? This is Soren Kirkpatrick. Mr. Kirkpatrick, I wanted to reach out to you directly because I think there may be some misunderstandings about the situation between my wife and me. I'm not sure this is appropriate. I understand your position, but I think you should know that Noemi has been using your business to facilitate personal relationships with clients. The line went quiet. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that my wife met Travis Dewitt through your agency, and that their relationship went beyond the professional. I have documentation of hotel reservations and other evidence that suggests she's been mixing business with pleasure. Mr. Fallon, these are serious accusations. Yes, they are, and I think you deserve to know about them before they become public knowledge. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. What kind of documentation? He asked finally. Hotel receipts, social media evidence, witness statements? The kind of thing that could be very embarrassing for a business that prides itself on discretion. I see. I'm not trying to cause trouble for your agency, Mr. Kirkpatrick, but I think you should be aware of what kind of employee you have. After I hung up, I felt a grim satisfaction. Noemi had tried to use her professional connections against me. Now she'd discover that game could be played both ways. That evening, Tara called me. Cedric, we need to talk. About what? About Noemi. About what's really been going on. I'm listening. Can you meet me somewhere? I don't want to do this over the phone. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. Tara was already there when I arrived, looking tired and stressed. Thank you for coming, she said, as I sat down across from her. What's on your mind, Tara? She stirred her coffee nervously. Noemi's been staying at my house since Saturday, and I've been listening to her side of the story. And some things aren't adding up. I waited for her to continue. She told me you've been emotionally abusive for years, that you controlled her finances and isolated her from her friends. What do you think? I think that's garbage. I've known you both for 10 years, Cedric. You're not an abusive husband. If anything, you've been too patient with her. Why are you telling me this? Tara looked uncomfortable. Because she asked me to lie for her. She wants me to tell people that I've witnessed you being controlling and manipulative. She wants me to say that I've been worried about her safety. And will you? No. I won't lie for her, and I won't be part of whatever game she's playing. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She left this at my house. I think you should see it. I unfolded the paper and found a handwritten list in Noemi's distinctive script. At the top, it read, Divorce Strategy. Below that was a series of bullet points. Establish pattern of emotional abuse, document controlling behavior, get restraining order, freeze joint accounts, secure house and assets, character witnesses, Tara, others, social media campaign, damage his reputation at work. I read through the list twice, feeling my anger build. She's been planning this for a while, Tara said. This isn't about Travis or the affair. This is about taking you for everything you're worth. Why are you showing me this? Because you don't deserve what she's planning to do to you, and because I'm tired of being used by people who think they're smarter than everyone else. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Thank you. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure she doesn't get away with it. Cedric, be careful. She's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. So do angry husbands. That night, I sat in my kitchen and planned my next move. Noemi wanted to play hardball. Fine. But she was about to learn that I'd been studying the game a lot longer than she realized. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. The next morning brought an unexpected development. I was getting ready for work when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a police officer standing on my front porch. Mr. Fallon? I'm Officer Martinez. I need to speak with you about a complaint that's been filed. What kind of complaint? Your wife has filed for a temporary restraining order. She's alleging harassment and threatening behavior. I invited him in and offered him coffee, which he declined. Can you tell me about your interactions with your wife over the past week? He asked, pulling out a notebook. I gave him a careful, factual account of recent events, including Noemi's affair and my discovery of it. I mentioned the hotel incident, but framed it as a confrontation with the man who was having an affair with my wife. She's claiming you've been following her, making threatening phone calls and trying to damage her reputation, Officer Martinez said. I haven't made any threatening phone calls, As for following her, I went to one hotel where I knew she was meeting another man, and her reputation is being damaged by her own actions, not mine. Do you have any documentation of the affair? I showed him the hotel receipt, some of the social media evidence I'd collected, and Noemi's handwritten divorce strategy list that Tara had given me. Officer Martinez studied the list carefully. Where did you get this? Her friend gave it to me. She was staying at the friend's house, and she left it behind. This changes things, he said. If she's been planning to make false accusations as part of a divorce strategy, that's a serious matter. What happens now? I'll need to include this information in my report. The restraining order hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. You should bring this documentation with you. After he left, I called in sick to work and spent the day preparing for the hearing. I organized all my evidence, made copies of everything, and called Jules to see if he could serve as a character witness. Of course, he said. But Cedric, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. It's already ugly. No, I mean really ugly. If she's willing to lie about abuse, she might be willing to lie about other things too. That afternoon, Soren Kirkpatrick called me. Mr. Fallon, I wanted to follow up on our conversation yesterday. What did you find out? I've reviewed Noemi's client files and her travel arrangements over the past 6 months. There are some irregularities that concern me. What kind of irregularities? Personal trips booked through business accounts, hotel reservations that don't match client itineraries, expenses that can't be properly documented. Are you saying she's been stealing? I'm saying there are questions that need to be answered. I've placed her on administrative leave pending a full investigation. This was better than I'd hoped. If Noemi was facing potential criminal charges for embezzlement, her credibility in the divorce proceedings would be seriously damaged. Thank you for letting me know, I said. Mr. Fallon, I want you to understand that this investigation is based on business irregularities, not personal issues. But if these irregularities are connected to her personal relationships, that's something we'll need to address. The restraining order hearing the next morning was held in a small courtroom with fluorescent lighting and uncomfortable plastic chairs. Noemi sat at a table with a lawyer I didn't recognize, looking composed and professional in a conservative business suit. When it was her turn to speak, she gave a convincing performance. She talked about years of emotional manipulation, controlling behavior, and escalating harassment. She claimed I'd been monitoring her communications, following her, and making threats against her and her friends. Your Honor, her lawyer said, my client is genuinely afraid for her safety. Mr. Fallon's behavior has become increasingly erratic and threatening. Then it was my turn. I presented the hotel receipt, the social media evidence, and most importantly, Noemi's handwritten divorce strategy list. Your Honor, this document shows that my wife has been planning to make false accusations against me as part of a calculated strategy to gain advantage in divorce proceedings. The allegations she's making today are not based on actual abuse, but on a deliberate plan to manipulate the legal system. The judge studied the document for several minutes, then looked at Noemi. Mrs. Fallon, can you explain this list? Noemi's composure cracked slightly. I don't know what that is. I've never seen it before. It's in your handwriting. Anyone could have written that. He probably created it himself to make me look bad. The judge looked skeptical. Mrs. Fallon, this appears to be a detailed strategy for making false accusations. If you did write this, you're essentially admitting to perjury. I didn't write it. But her voice had risen, and she sounded defensive rather than convincing. The judge denied the restraining order. Based on the evidence presented, I find that Mrs. Fallon has not demonstrated a credible threat of harm. Furthermore, the documentation provided by Mr. Fallon raises serious questions about the motivation behind these allegations. As we left the courthouse, Noemi's lawyer pulled her aside for what looked like a heated conversation. I could see her gesturing angrily, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. Jules, who had come to serve as my character witness, walked with me to the parking garage. That went better than expected, he said. It's not over yet. She's not going to give up this easily. I was right. That afternoon, I received a call from a reporter at the local newspaper. "Mr. Fallon, I'm calling about allegations that you've been harassing your estranged wife and her friends. Would you like to comment?" "Who told you that?" "I can't reveal my sources, but I understand there was a restraining order hearing today." "The restraining order was denied because the allegations were false." "Can you elaborate on that?" I gave him a brief summary of the situation, including Noemi's affair and her documented strategy to make false accusations. "Do you have proof of these claims?" "I have extensive documentation, including handwritten evidence of her plan to manipulate the legal system." The story ran the next day, but it wasn't the hit piece Noemi had probably hoped for. The reporter had done his homework and included information about the denied restraining order and questions about the credibility of the accusations. More importantly, the story mentioned the ongoing investigation at Kirkpatrick Travel, which brought Noemi's professional conduct into question. By the end of the week, Noemi's carefully constructed narrative was falling apart. Tara had refused to support her claims of abuse. Her boss had placed her on administrative leave. The restraining order had been denied. And now her attempt to manipulate the media had backfired. But I wasn't finished yet. On Friday evening, I drove to the upscale restaurant where Noemi and her social circle liked to meet for drinks. I knew she'd be there, trying to rally support and control the damage to her reputation. I walked into the bar and found her sitting at a corner table with 3 other women, all of whom I recognized from various social events over the years. "Ladies," I said, approaching their table, "mind if I join you?" The conversation stopped abruptly. Noemi's face went pale. "Cedric, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to make sure your friends heard the whole story, not just your version." I pulled out a chair and sat down, ignoring the uncomfortable looks from the other women. "Did Noemi tell you about her divorce strategy list?" I asked. "The one where she planned to make false accusations against me?" "You need to leave," Noemi said. "Did she mention that she's under investigation at work for potentially stealing from her employer?" "That's a lie." "Is it? Why don't you call Soren and ask him?" One of the women, Linda, looked back and forth between us. "Noemi, what is he talking about?" "He's trying to destroy my reputation because I had the courage to leave him." "Actually," I said, "I'm just making sure people know the truth. Your friend here has been having an affair with a client, using company resources to facilitate personal relationships, and planning to make false accusations against me to gain advantage in divorce proceedings." I placed copies of the relevant documents on the table. "Everything's documented. The hotel receipts, the strategy list, the investigation at her workplace. You can read it for yourselves." Linda picked up the handwritten list and scanned it. Her expression changed as she read. "Noemi, did you really write this?" "Of course not. He's making all of this up." But Linda was comparing the handwriting to a note Noemi had written earlier, and the similarity was obvious. "This looks like your writing. I can't believe you're taking his side." "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just trying to understand what's really going on." The other women were reading the documents now, their expressions growing more skeptical as they absorbed the information. "Noemi," one of them said, "if even half of this is true—" "None of it's true. He's a manipulative liar who can't accept that I don't want to be married to him anymore." But her voice had gotten shrill, and she was starting to sound desperate rather than credible. I stood up and straightened my jacket. "Ladies, I'll let you draw your own conclusions, but I thought you deserved to know what kind of person you're supporting." As I walked away, I could hear them starting to question Noemi more aggressively. Her carefully cultivated social network was beginning to crumble. Outside in the parking lot, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. This isn't over." I smiled and deleted the message. Noemi was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But she was wrong about who was going to win. The war was just getting started, and I was finally beginning to enjoy myself.